Welcome to Noteflight Learn 201. Thank you so much for joining me live and watching this video afterwards. I know many people are watching the recording. If you just watched the 101 overview, I know you're excited to see how all this comes together. If you're someone that's used Noteflight Learn for a year or 2 years or 4 years and you're looking for some power tips, this particular webinar is for you. What I'm going to do in this segment is I'm going to go through some just some actual use cases of assignments. I'm just going to use the software, right? I don't have a lot of things pre-set up. I'm actually just going to use Noteflight and talk about some of the scenarios where everything comes together. But at the 201 level, to say the next level, it's really about using all the components together to create really valuable experiences for students, experiences where they can understand music from a composition and a performance aspect, and they can challenge and collaborate with each other on musical learning. I'll preface by saying that music technology, right? Music technology is not necessarily intended to create a final product that's perfect and wonderful. You know, we could use SoundCheck just to better understand intonation without having to get a grade and turn it in. We can compose just to better understand what a counter melody or a harmony is and how I can use those and understand those musical elements. So we go through tonight, you know, we could practice pulling a pop song and just transposing it and understanding how do I play my favorite Disney song on saxophone versus bassoon versus trumpet, and what does range and transposition actually mean. So all these elements, because you have unlimited scores in your Noteflight Learn account, because you can edit and delete and redo all this stuff, you know, you can be really messy in these sites, and you can have students just use the technology to better understand music. And I think sometimes we think that it's the composition software part of Noteflight Learn. You know, we have to learn to compose, but we could just enter notes and see what sounds good and talk about musical form or rhythm or harmony or texture or melodic shape. So I'd ask you just to keep an open mind and think about how not only we can create assignments where students do create products and projects with these tools, but also how they just learn music and how we can gamify it and how we can make it fun, right? Students can go home and say, you know what? I want to just play with this song, play with this song. Maybe I want to learn it on my instrument. Maybe I want to learn to sing it. Maybe I just want to take the melody and see if I could write something else that sounds cool. And that's fun. And those are the type of things that really excite us and that we try to empower educators and students to do. So let's get into some 201 tips. The first place I want to start, again, is the Noteflight Learn Help Center. So I will say that there are some really, really great resources in here, and I'm going to show a lot of information really quickly in this webinar. So you'll want to go back and say, how did he do that? Well, everything is in this support center somewhere. So this making worksheets article, I already have it up, but is really, really valuable. And I won't go through all the details in this particular video because you have 2 embedded videos already showing this, but all the different components that you would use in notation to make videos with text, different types of text, you know, that's all available, systems and measures, all of this. So please use this particular support article to go through and learn how all of this works. Now, there's information on sharing scores as well. I know I showed that last time. I'm going to talk about recording audio later. That is there. There's a whole recording audio tutorial here, step by step. So while I know I'm going through this a little quickly tonight, you have links to everything in the support center. So we're going to actually do this syncing with YouTube piece because that's super fun as well. And I think that's great. All the SoundCheck components, which we'll start with, are here in detail. As well as there's a lot of lessons in here. So Noteflight offers a library of lessons that you can access and search and you can contribute to. So if you're looking for lesson ideas, I think there's 500-600 in here now. I don't know the actual total number because they keep adding. So a lot of these, they link to standards, they link to a specific Noteflight score, but a lot of times teachers will actually upload a lesson doc. So if you want to search for composition lessons in here, there's 60 in here. If you want to search by, let's say, NCS standard, there's 53 in here. You can go through and just find and look at all these lessons and search from there. So please know that this Noteflight Learn lesson resources is a database that is free that you can use and have access to and share your own lessons. Also, there's a lot of other webinars in here, music theory lessons, there's professional development available. So just check out all of this because that's one of the areas that I want to make sure that you see and know because there's lots of valuable information in the support center. Now, the first two things I want to go through is I want to go through SoundCheck at the next level and what SoundCheck looks like at a more advanced level. And I have something up here. And then I want to do some like Noteflight editor advanced tricks as well. So let's start with SoundCheck. Now, here's a SoundCheck score. That's what we call them, right? So it's music just like you see in Noteflight. Now, a couple things that you have options here. Let me just reset zoom. Oops, let's zoom in a little bit. That was zoomed out really far. There are a couple different views you can get into as well. Let me just minimize this once here. So this is a scroll view. I can go and look at my independent parts. So I can go and see my violin 1 part, violin 2. So notice all the parts are here and students will just select their part and play. I want to go over a little more detail of the playback and backing track options so you really understand how to customize these. So playback is what happens when you or your students hit play. I know that sounds obvious, but sometimes it's important to go through that. Recording is what happens when you or your students hit record. And you have different options here. So in this case, I can set demo audio for playback and metronome for record. That means when I look at this music, right, when I hit play, right, I'm going to go back to my violin 1 part. Or now when I hit record, I'm going to record with the metronome. And so you can set this up differently. So let me go ahead and do that. Always look at, teach your students to kind of set up their tracks. Again, cursor on and off. You can have it follow you where it waits to hear for certain notes. Follow me as kind of a pro tip. I think it's best used when you're performing from it and you want the music to scroll along with you. Follow me is great, but if a student is missing notes and it's not hearing the notes and it's waiting, the rhythmic piece of the assessment could get a little confused, right? Because it's also trying to assess your rhythmic accuracy, but so I think if you're doing a really true assessment, use a backing track or a metronome option. And again, if you want students to be assessed on the piece without actually like playing along with the demo audio, because you can say, I want to practice the demo audio, but in that case, they're hearing in their headphones exactly what they're supposed to be playing. And there's a lot of rote mimicking that happens there. So I'll show you how you can control the students are only allowed to hear the metronome. So that's by setting these settings. So I am setting up the SoundCheck score. I want metronome only. Students can hear the demo if they want, but when they hit record for their assessment, I only want them to have the metronome. And I'll keep the cursor on, though I like to keep it off for students, but it's on these videos, it's nice for you to see the scrolling so you know where I am. So now let's go through and do an assessment on this. And I'll do a quick video assessment here. You're about to see me and me. So now let me go and play a little bit and get some audio in here. I'm playing my all right, I gave you a nice B flat in there so you can get a wrong note. only played a certain length of it, got an overall score here. So let's take a look and see what this looks like. So you see right here, like, yes, that was a B flat. Thank you so much for letting me know. And then you see the wavy line here. That means the rhythm was messed up. I did sag the pitch on these E's as I went. And I was being a little overly expressive and slowing down a little bit. So a couple power tips on SoundCheck. You can toggle between what the demo audio should be or what the recorded audio is. So students can actually hear a comparison against what they played versus what it should have sounded like. So let me hit play and show you. That's the demo audio, but I can click here. So I can hear, okay, well, why does it say I was red? Sorry, I know that's annoying, but I want to show you that the intent is to, look at the feedback on the line, right? The feedback that's being given in SoundCheck, but be able to say, okay, what should I have played? What did I play? Wow, look at that face. Someone screenshot that and put it on Facebook. Please don't. Let me just get off of that. Oh, that's even, look, I'm so expressive there. Oh my gosh, the video. I love the video in SoundCheck. I love the fact that SoundCheck does video because you can see, as a trumpet player, I video myself all the time because I never miss a note. But if I were to miss a note and it was a high note, I bet the shoulders start rising. I start stacking breaths and I get all like discombobulated. And then I am having bad breath support and bad air control. And that's why I'm missing notes. But you can see that in the video piece, right? So super cool feature. We're so happy that's available in there. And all of this. So that's the first thing I want to show, the comparison back and forth and scrolling between. And you can control all this. So now let me show you how to create a assignment where you are in complete control of what students can do. So I've practiced, I've figured out how I want this to work. I have set my tracks in SoundCheck, right? I've gone through and I've specified I want playback to be the demo, recording can only be the metronome. Maybe I don't want students to control the cursor. So what you're going to do is you're going to set all the settings that you want students to have in advance. You open up the SoundCheck score. This is really important because we want you as an educator to have the same interface. We don't want you to go to some separate control panel and click a bunch of buttons and turn a bunch of knobs. This is like WYSIWYG, right? What you see is what you get. So you go to SoundCheck, you select everything you want your students to experience in SoundCheck, right? And I have this, so I've got it all set up. I've set, maybe I want the tempo to be about 10 clicks faster, so I can set that up here as well. I've set up SoundCheck exactly how I want my students to experience. Now, I go and create that assignment. Notice here, this is where locked mode and unlocked mode comes in. Unlocked mode means students have access to change those settings. Tempo, playback, recording, they can set that up. In locked mode, that means all the settings you just tinkered with are locked. Students cannot change this. So if you're using this for a true assessment and you do not want students to be able to hear it and learn it by rote, right? You can go in and you can go back to that track section and say, you know what, like you can only hear the metronome. That's it. All you can hear is the metronome. You cannot hear the demo audio. You can't memorize it. If you're doing like a sight reading assessment, you can specify metronome only and they'll never hear the notes played. And then you can put it in locked mode. Now there's also 3 additional settings up here for SoundCheck: score goal, difficulty, and number of attempts. So score goal is when SoundCheck pops up and says, you got an 85 out of 80, 80 as the goal. That's what you set for your assignment. So you can set a higher score goal or a lower score goal, and that lets SoundCheck know to say green or yellow or red. Difficulty level. There are 3 difficulties of the assessment technology: easy, medium, hard. You can think this as assessment strictness, right? So it's sort of like how strict is it going to be versus like intonation versus wrong note. And you can play with this on your own to understand, but you can also experiment with the experience for your students. So maybe you want to set a very high goal, but you want to let the assessment have a little more deviation, a little more range of, difficulty. Or if you want to be like super strict, 95% and the hardest assessment level. So there are 3 levels you can set. And then you can control number of attempts. This is how many times students get to hit record. And if you say you only get 2 attempts, that means they can record once. If they want to try again, they can, but that's it. So if I want to do a true sight reading experience, I would, like I showed before, I would set metronome only. I would set locked mode. I would set hard difficulty level, 1 attempt. That's it. They have to take the first score they get. And that's how you'd set up your SoundCheck assignment. So using all of these tools, right, you as an educator have full control over what your students can do. You can send them something in SoundCheck unlocked and say, learn it. The students could slow the tempo down. They could speed the tempo up. They could try as many attempts as they want. They could just use it to learn. But when it comes to assessment time, it is locked mode. You can only hear what I want you to hear. You can only play at the tempo I specify. You can even go in and use I'll show you this too, the marked selection piece as well. So if you want to mark a particular area of this, right, you can say, I only want you to assess the first 4 measures. You can mark this, and that marked selection is also locked in locked mode. So when they get it, they'll only be able to play and get assessed on those measures. So you have complete control over this, right? Also, you can choose to disable video. If for some reason you don't want students to access video, you can go in your Noteflight Learn account and turn off video. If you're a district that says student video is not allowed, you can turn off video in your account for your students if you want. Totally up to you, right? We are tools that serve you as an educator, so you have complete control. So that's your 201 level advanced tips on SoundCheck. All those little settings, number of attempts, difficulty level, score goal, locked and unlocked, all of those are there for you to truly customize the experience. And don't forget, your students can customize those for themselves. They can practice with all those tools. So students can practice composing something for themselves and seeing if they can play it with only 2 attempts at the hard level and get a 90% or higher. Like, they can press those buttons and gamify for themselves. They can also create those for each other. So imagine you have 30 students write a sight reading at certain levels you specify, and then they have to write it in Noteflight, create a SoundCheck score. Every other student just got 29 sight reading exercises they've never seen. And you could rotate through them. You could gamify. You can make challenges. You could post the sight reading of the week for the next 30 weeks. Again, all sorts of fun opportunities there. So that's SoundCheck. Now, let's look at Noteflight and talk about some advanced editor features in Noteflight. So like I mentioned before, there's lots of palettes on here. I think one thing that's good to do when you get more used to this is create an assignment where your students just scavenger hunt and learn musical elements. Using a notation editor is incredibly valuable just to learn what musical elements exist and how they go together. So sometimes I've done something called like make a mess, where students have to use every single option in Noteflight and make like a messy score. Or sometimes you could do like a scavenger hunt where you have to create a score that has to use 10 things. They have to find it. But a lot of times I'll just scroll through and use this as a teaching element and say, how does a grace note affect rhythm? What is a, quintuplet or sextuplet or septuplet? You could use these, like talk about what is a double sharp? Like, you could use this as a baseline. Which of these elements do students already understand? Power tip, you could do swing eighths and swing sixteenths in Noteflight. So if you're writing a jazz chart, you could specify the percentage of swing for eighth notes and 16th notes. Don't forget that. They're right under here in the tempo setting. All these different text options, which again, we go through in detail in the making worksheets blog I showed you earlier. So you can see all the text options. But another power tip I'll show you is this idea of text block before or after a system. So text after a system, right? I can go in and I'll do this here, add my own text down here, and I could just put text directly related before or after the system. And we'll show this in a second, but since I'm in formatting, if I want to make this bigger, you have a text option to customize the size of this. So if I would like my prompt size to get bigger, I can increase the size of these text blocks and they will show up bigger in here. I'm doing this too fast. So let me just edit out of this because I don't want a big text block in my piece here anymore. Now, we'll talk about formatting here in a second, but I wanted to show it while I was there. Measure. There's a really good measure is everything that's controlled at the measure level. So this is where time signature, key signature, all the various clefs are. Hidden and show cautionaries is here. This is another great thing when you want to make a worksheet nice and clean. If you're creating multiple lines with different keys, you can hide show cautionaries. You can always enable multi-measure rests. That's really important. So Noteflight will select a range and create those multi-measure rests for you. I'm not going to go through all of this. Color is something I really want to emphasize. So you have standard colors. You also have classroom colors. These are boom whacker colors for elementary folks who are trying to write and students have red notation. I know other programs and products use the same color scheme. This is that color scheme. You can also use these for students to identify music. So if you want them to, find all E's in the music and highlight it classroom E, they can go in and select E and go to color, classroom E. If I'm doing something like this, I'll just expand the color palette right up here and find all my E's in color and classroom E. So that's another great option there. Other pieces that are sort of power tips. I'll get myself out of the way here. The mixer. You have a full mixer in Noteflight that allows you to mix the playback. So if you want to change the volume of certain instruments and levels, you can mix these. You can also pan them. So power tip, if you have something you compose and you want to make it sound a little larger, think about how an orchestra would sit. I'm looking at a stage. I'll have first violin, second violin, maybe cello, viola, cello, double bass, kind of from left to right. So check this out. Let's pan our violins left, our second violins left, keep the violas in the middle, pan our cellos right, pan our basses out, maybe turn the piano off. Now I've mixed for a more stereo sound. If you're listening in headphones, I'm not sure if Zoom's going to play through a stereo mix, but if it makes a difference, I'll play it for you. It is. I'm hitting my left hand. I'm not sure if the YouTube video you're watching or Zoom is actually playing that, but I'm hearing it panned and the basses come in, cello come in on more to the right. It's a really cool effect that makes the music sound more realistic, like you're looking at that stage. So just know you have the mixer. And we'll talk more about that when we do recording here in a second, but I wanted to show that as well. You also have multiple view options, and I'll show these up here. So in the top, you have page view by default, but strip view, always nice to go into, so you can scroll through the music left and right. Again, if your student is reading and playing on a Chromebook, let them scroll through the music left to right, right? Because remember, our laptop screens, which we spend most of our time today, are shaped longer than they are tall. So the idea of page view, if you're not printing the music, don't waste all this space here and all this space here, right? Don't waste the space. Just go into a different view. We also have flow view, which expands the music to the width of the screen automatically. Super helpful for getting all the notes in a page. And perform view, if you have an iPad or a full screen, you want to go into a full screen performance view where you could just change pages with the click of a button or your Bluetooth page turner or your arrow keys. You can do that as well. But you have all these different views, so be okay with using those. Now, I promised I'll talk a little bit about formatting. You have control if you're notating or composing something that you want to make sure looks really, really, really great. You have control of the full score as well as the parts independently. So I can go in and I'm just going to make a mess of this piece right now to demonstrate. If I want the note size on the score to be smaller, I can do that. If I want the staff spacing to be larger, if I want to indent the first line a little bit on my score, I can do that. Maybe I want the title to be bigger, so let's make the title size bigger. There's title size, prompt size, composer and lyricist. Let's make Michael Sweeney's name bigger here. What a great guy Mike is. Lyrics, there's no lyrics in this, but you can add it. So I can play with all these knobs. I can even make my score in landscape, which is a popular thing to do. Now I can edit the parts to look completely different. So notice the parts inherited some of that, but I can make the note size of my parts a little bigger, right? So it prints out a little bigger on the page if you want to print it. I can go and say the title's a little big. Okay, Mike Sweeney, we love you, but your name is real big now, so let's make that a little smaller. You see I'm editing this? Now the cool thing is all the parts are highlighted, so I'm making these changes for all the parts. So I can go back to my score, boom, landscape view, different sizes, my parts are like this. Now let's say I want to customize further. I can make further changes on an individual part. So I could go to my bass part and say my bass players, they're going to be standing way back on a stool trying to figure out, is it French or German grip? I don't know what I'm doing. Oh my gosh, I'm so confused. So we can make the notes real big for our bass players, right? But I didn't change the notes for my cello, and I still have full score. So this formatting panel is super cool because you can take one link, one score, one URL, but you can customize the way every single part looks. And automatically you could do all the parts together. The score and the parts all look differently. And when you bring it all together, I'm looking at the score. If I open my parts panel in view violin 2, notice it just changed to portrait and it has the size of violin 2. If I go to the bass part, bam, there that is. If I want to print the whole thing, I can go ahead and print this out, export it how I want. I can print any of my changes that I've done in Noteflight. I can also, when you create SoundCheck here, your SoundCheck score will have the exact formatting that the parts of your Noteflight score have. Exactly. So if you are using SoundCheck and you find that maybe there's too many measures per system, or your students have maybe a smaller Chromebook, or their home setup is they have to set it further back and play, and they're looking at the music on the screen from a distance and the notes need to be bigger, use formatting in Noteflight, make the notes huge. The second you generate SoundCheck, it has the exact same settings that you used in Noteflight. So that's super helpful. If you want to color certain notes, it generates the same. So that's super important to understand Noteflight scores, SoundCheck scores in that comparison. Cool. Moving merrily along, let's talk about, somebody asked about saving a default format setup. This is, I'm going to tell you a secret. Well, it's going to be on a video now. This is a feature that's coming soon. We are working on this feature right now. This is going to be a surprise announcement, but you asked. Yes, we are adding very soon the ability to customize multiple fonts for every text element and to set a formatting setting. It's called Save Styles. You'll be able to save your style and apply it to any score automatically. It's a feature we get asked about a lot, and it is in progress right now, and it's going to be super awesome. All right, so let's talk about audio recording in Noteflight, right? So I have pulled a piece of music from our content library. I'll just show you how I did that to make sure everyone sees. I know sometimes I move really fast on these. Where did he get that? I went to the content library. I went into this pop music, and I found, I think I put show tunes, or just look for something that had a nice melody, something that you would have in your head all night or all day after watching this. And so we're going to let Andrew Lloyd Webber stay in your head forever. So basically I've taken this right from the library. It's in B flat, and we're going to pull together this melody. So you can actually audio record right in Noteflight. Now, of course, I can create a SoundCheck assessment out of this as well, but I'm going to show audio recording in Noteflight because I think that's something super fun as well. Because maybe you want to record, but maybe you composed a piece and you want to play or sing how you want it performed, right? Maybe you don't want to get performance assessment or feedback. You just want to play along and share like this in the composition. Let's make a recording. So I'm going to go into record mode. It's right up here at the top. just so while we're here, transcribe mode is where you can take a MIDI controller and it will transcribe the notes you press on your MIDI controller. Record mode is for audio. So I'm going to go into record mode. I'm going to set my cursor right on this part here. And you could do a little setup. There's a whole article on this. I'm going to skip all this step. Yes, make sure that's, I'm going to skip all this because I know I'm already set up. You can control your input device. So there's lots of different input devices. I'm going to use my one here. And let's do a little recording. So it's going to give a 2 measure. You can also control the count off. So just a little snippet of that. So now here is a piano and audio recording of John Malenzak. It'll pop up here in a second, playing that melody, right? It'll pop up here in a second. Come on, come on. Did I not hit it right? I might have done a bad thing. All good demos work out. So let me try this again, make sure the audio settings doing this. Before I do, let me go ahead and now show you how to change the count-in measures to only 1 so we don't have to hit clicking forever. Let me do a setup, make sure my audio is working. Okay, that's working. Let me sync my setup here. Okay, now let's give it a try. Okie dokie, I'm just gonna see if that plugs in. It looks like that one took, so I must have been playing with this earlier and messed it up. So this will show up that John Malenzak has now recorded this particular section of music. And what you'll see is that we will be able to hear John playing this along with the piano. Now, you could record duets with yourself. You could record trios. Students could record a part and essentially transcribe it, which is the next thing I want to show. So now, let me go and create a new score and show you how to do a dictation assignment. So I'm going to go in here and call this dictate, because this actually, a teacher showed us this, which is super fun, is that you actually don't have to have notes in the measure to record. So if I wanted to record something like this, right? This becomes a guess what John just played element. So I can play this back. And I can actually assign this, and maybe I have to go in and, that's the one, right? And so I can actually go in and have to dictate this. So another fun way of using recording is not only recording along to something you've created, but being able to, being able to dictate and use it as a dictation assignment. And so think about that with audio. Another power tip here, and let me just show you this, is you can actually do this with 2 parts. So this is more advanced, but you can set up some assignments where your students have to dictate. Yes. So I'm actually going to name the part. Oh, I didn't hit S twice. Guess the notes. Oops. Actually got to pick an instrument. So we're going to pick a flute sound or something like that. And I'm going to name the part, guess the notes. And then I'm going to just make this abbreviated part, question mark. So now there's a guess the notes part. Now I'm going to put this on top. And there's this flute part down here. So what I'm going to do is record to the flute part, and I'm going to give that same sort of sample recording. I'll do this quickly for you. So I've just laid down some recording, some audio here. That's saved. Now in Noteflight, I can turn this part off. They don't even have to see it. All I did was I just hid that part, but we will still hear it. So now I can, and this is helpful too, because you don't have to see the waveform in there, like the recorded part is hidden, but students can try to guess. This is B flat. I'm just repeating. I'm really good at guessing what I actually just played, right? It's probably a good thing. So now let's play back. Now, when you go into like, I usually record mode, but if you see the mixer, you can choose in the mixer what you hear. So I can go in here and say, okay, let me hear my guess the notes. Is that what this sounds like? Let me hear this part. Let me go back and hear the guess the notes part. See how I'm doing that? So this is a little advanced. I'm manipulating all these features, but I'm telling you, once you get good at like driving this thing, it's really, really great, because you could actually assign this to students too. Like they're better at this stuff than we are sometimes, but just the opportunity of saying, hey, play your instrument, because here's an opportunity for students to have to play an instrument and sing in a specific time and be really clear and rhythmic accuracy, then make it a dictation assignment for another student. That could be super fun, right? So all of these are available. If you show students how to turn mute parts in the mixer and hide and show parts in the view, you can make all sorts of cool opportunities here. The other feature I'll show you it's a cool power tip here is if I go and show all parts, one thing that's super helpful is this option here. It says play only parts in view. Guess what it does? Play only parts of view. So we added this a while ago to make it really easy to follow what you're viewing. So if I'm in the parts panel and play only parts in view is selected, then all I have to do is simply hide or show parts to choose what I want to hear. So in this case, I can go to parts and say, I want to hear guess the notes. Okay, I want to hear piano. And you see it only plays what I view. So that's what that option does. And again, notice every time I make a change like that, the save button comes up. So again, you can tinker with this and set it exactly how you want your students to experience it and hit save. And then when you send it to your students, they're getting all of your settings exactly as you left them, right? And that's really important. So you don't have to have students go tinker with all these buttons. You set it up, create that assignment, just like we've done so many times here. We can go into score details. We can share. Ta-da. We're going to, you have to give it a title to share. And you could share activity template, bam. And then any student that opens this gets it exactly as you left it. Pretty cool. Okay, so we've talked about advanced SoundCheck, advanced Noteflight, advanced editor. We've talked about recording and parts. Now, let's talk about audio sync, right? Yeah, I have another demo up here. I want to get to improvisation if we have time. Let's talk about audio sync. So you can actually sync with a YouTube video or a SoundCloud file, but YouTube works best right along with a piece of music. So I've opened, again, another show tune right from the Noteflight Pop library. And I think I do the YouTube video ready to go. I found a YouTube video of this song.
Andre, this is doing nothing for my nerves. Oh, she's very pretty.
Cool. So it starts 2 measures in. So I'm going to take this URL, copy it. Now I'm going to go into my score and I'm going to hit sync audio. This is an amazingly fun activity to get students engaged in, like seeing notes and understanding how they fit with audio. The exercise alone is incredibly valuable. So I'm going to paste in my URL and it's going to load a little mini version of this in here. I'm gonna get myself up top. Other power tip is I like to do this in strip view. It's a little easier to see the music. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna tap, you can read the instructions here. We're gonna tap each measure. I like to use the M key on my keyboard. So we're gonna sync this Noteflight score with this video. And let's go ahead and start that. So I'm gonna hit play down here.
Andre, this is doing nothing for my nerves. She's very pretty.
So I'm just tapping each measure. One. It's a good way for students to watch the notation.
Once in a while, please promise me you'll try. And you'll find that once again you
See, it's a little
long
faster.
to take our heart and be free. If you ever find a moment, spare a thought for me.
We'll stop there. But so now I've synced the first part of this score with the YouTube video. So I'm going to go back into page view for a second. Now, the cool thing is anytime I play this music, if I start here, it's going to start the audio right at the YouTube video. And I can press this expand button and I get a large video view. And I love to go into strip view for this. So students can see a performance of the music while seeing the notation scroll along. And you can sync these up. I love this with assignments. I love this feature because you have 864 popular songs in Noteflight right now. And I guarantee there's all performances on YouTube. You could have students just sync it up and then they could find model performances. Students could record videos of themselves playing an etude that they wrote in Noteflight and put it on a YouTube account. They could sync their performance to the notes scrolling. They could share that out. So many options here. So this video is, this YouTube sync is super valuable. You can use this with an MP3 file as long as the MP3 is hosted somewhere. Like if you have a URL.mp3 or .something, it'll work with any web hosted media. So you have something on SoundCloud or something like that. But again, it works really well with YouTube. Also, jazzers, improvisers, you know how many YouTube videos there are of just comps for like backing tracks to songs? You could make a quick lead sheet, blues, find a blues video. You could have students compose a melody to a B flat blues or E flat blues or something like that, and then sync it to a blues track and compose along with that. Because now that I'm synced, again, this is still a Noteflight score. I could edit it. I could add my own thing. This is where it gets super cool. I could also record. So now let's put it all together. Actually, I need to put my thing up so you can see. Let me go back to the beginning. I'm going to start right at the beginning of the piece here.
Andre,
All right, make sure it's the beginning.
Andre, this is doing nothing.
Now I'm going to hit record. I'm going to record me playing Christine's line along with the YouTube video, because the YouTube video shows up as a part right here in the mixer that you could control the volume of and you can record or play along with. So I'm only hearing the YouTube video, and let's see what happens here.
Andre, this is doing nothing for my
What
nerves.
key am I? Okay.
She's very pretty.
So notice I harmonized a little bit, but that's the fun. This is the beginning of improvisation. Play along, doodle around, hear what you play, and now you can sort of go back and put this all together, and I could hear.
Andre, this is doing nothing for my nerves.
I need to go on my mixer real quick and make sure this is set up. Here's my part. Voice part needs to play, and I should be able to hear all of this put together. And you have a little mixer here. Just working the mix. How cool is that? So you could add another line, you could improvise, students can play along, sing along, and then they'll have their voice. This is all an experience that we created right in Noteflight. And again, if a student sings this and has it synced with the video of a performance and has the music scrolling, they can take that and show it to their parents. They could share it with their family. Like, this is where it all comes together. This is like truly Noteflight 201, right? Putting all this together. And again, if they want to learn that melody, create a SoundCheck score. They could learn to sing the melody or play the melody in SoundCheck, then go back in Noteflight and do their recording, sync to a YouTube video, everything coming together, right? We're starting to see how all of this works together in a really cool way. Awesome. I have time to show one more tip. I thought I was going to run out of time, but I didn't. So I'm taking a choral piece now. Another thing I love to do is take the music in Noteflight again. This is from the choral library. We all know this one. We can use the combination of notation or recording to sort of create the ability for students to compose, but with familiar chord progressions. So we all know this tune. Let's kind of play it. So let me show you how quick it is to take. I'm just gonna maybe take the introduction out, and I'm gonna go open my edit menu and just delete these measures. All right, I'm going to do into this solo. So now I'm going to go from here. And again, I'm just going to clean this up. So I didn't want to do anything in advance because I wanted you to see how all of this works in Noteflight. So I'm just going to shift select to the end, delete all of this. So now I've just got it down to the melody. And maybe I only want to see the melody. So here's that. Now I have a piano and SAB accompaniment underneath this. So I'm looking at a single melody that's familiar, but I'm hearing everything, right? And that's that combination of what you see and what you hear. So I've isolated it down to just what I'm seeing, but I'm letting all the parts that are hidden right now still play. So here's where it gets cool. What if I want students to compose or practice writing a melody? I'm going to take out these notes. I'm going to completely remove these notes. This is setting up a little assignment for your students. And now this becomes the All of Me composition exercises. So now students have to write a melody that fits with this backing, right? So you have 850 pop songs. This works with full band, full orchestra, choir. So I've now created a composition exercise where students are getting to compose to the chord progression from All of Me by John Legend. And maybe they've heard the song, maybe they haven't. So this is a wonderful way to get students composing with something that's just not like 1-4-1 and get them engaged in making music, creating their own versions. And again, once students compose melody, you could say, hey, you've created a great melody, it fits in the chords, let's create a SoundCheck file and let's have everyone learn to play your melody at 85% or higher. All of this is integrated in Noteflight. The other thing I love to do is think about improvising and exploring. So let's say I don't know what to compose, common thing. Don't forget about record mode. So one thing I have students do is just play a little bit. Like just play with things that sound good. You can doodle all you want. Right, so I just played some stuff that kind of sounded good, but it was recorded. So now I can go back. This is how we learn to improvise. This is how we learn to compose. This is how we learn to create. So I can go back here and say, I don't like that one. Huh. Ooh, that's a good little riff. So guess what? If I find this and I like it, I could go and notate it. What did I play there? Oh, okay, that sounds like what I played. And then I can sort of dictate what I just played. And now I've composed a little snippet here. So I liked this part. So I wrote down what I played. Now watch this. Sure, let me delete the audio. I know I like this. I now want to think of a better way to start. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to do it again. I'm going to start the cursor here, and I'm going to try to vamp on this until I find enough little cool snippets that I like. And eventually I've created a melody. So now we've created an experience where students are composing, but they're trying things with their instruments. They're listening back to themselves, right? So much fun. And again, once they get that melody done, right, they can go and create SoundCheck. They can learn to play it. Students can look at each other's melodies. All kinds of possibilities here. So I got through everything I wanted to show, which is super fun. So as you can probably hear from how like incredibly enthusiastic I get by all of this stuff, Noteflight Learn, it ain't just composition. You have the best online music composition software working on any device, the best performance assessment, polyphonic, integrated, directly integrated with Noteflight Learn and SoundCheck. You have the ability to go from SoundCheck back to Noteflight to SoundCheck seamlessly in the same platform. You're not exporting a file or importing a file. You're just pressing buttons and Noteflight's doing everything for you and your students. You have thousands of pieces of music from Hal Leonard that you can use, manipulate. You can import music XML. You can import anything from Finale or Sibelius you may have, or MuseScore, whatever it is. Import a Noteflight, your students can compose. You have audio recorded Noteflight. You have audio recording and video recording in SoundCheck. What other tools could you ask for, right? So now I encourage you to think about how all of these tools allow students to explore music, little improvisation, little composition. I said this at the beginning, all of these things could be fun little snippets. And as you saw that I showed tonight, that you can use all of these just to experiment with a motif or just to experiment with composing a melody, whatever it is. You know, don't feel like you have to teach a semester's worth of theory that we hated in college. I don't know about you, I was, trying to just get through it before students could ever create music. You have all of these great melodies. You have piano parts that are already in chord progressions. Use these, let students explore. And remember that share button, share with students, share as an activity template, share in Google Classroom, create an assignment in Canvas, which we'll see in the next video on Thursday when you attend that one. All of this is available. So Noteflight Learn is here to allow you and your students to explore music from performance to creation and everything in between. And we encourage you to use the tools to do that. Again, everything you need to learn and do is on Noteflight's support.noteflight.com. So you have all this information here. Everything I showed, there's an article on how to do here. If you have not signed up for a free trial of Noteflight Learn yet, it is available right on the Noteflight Learn page. You can sign up for a free trial, quote or purchase with SoundCheck and content, get it all together. You can read more about SoundCheck performance assessment here. You can play with it all. Thank you so much for attending. I really appreciate your time. I appreciate you watching this. I hope you got inspired by some of the activities we did. And our team is always here to support you. So you can always reach out to us at support@noteflight.com. Thank you so much for watching.